Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Filip Ivanišević. I work as a product marketing manager in Infobip. And today we are going to talk about creating new revenue streams and engaging customer with mobile communication. And I'm really happy to welcome Blanche. Bojan, welcome.
Hello everybody.
So Bojan is a director of print and telemarketing in Studio Moderne. And before I give my word to Bojan, I will just explain a couple of guidelines regarding the webinar itself. So you can ask questions during the whole webinar process. You have the question tab on your tool, and after we are finished with the interview, we are going to have a question and answer session. And this webinar will have different topics. We will start about Studio Moderne itself. So Bojan is going to do the introduction. Then we are going to talk a bit on the use cases and campaigns Studio Moderne has in messaging with messaging tools. Then we are going to focus a bit on how to choose the right provider. And in the end, Bojan is also going to share a bit of his vision of how customer engagement is going to look like tomorrow. So Bojan, are we ready to start?
Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me. So I will assume that not many of you know Studio Moderne in details, so I will give a brief explanation about our company. So basically we are a leading multi-brand retailer in Central and Eastern Europe. We are operating in 20 markets, actually 21, because just a few months ago we opened also Kazakhstan. And the company, basically we are not a producer, so we buy and sell, but I would say we are not a classical retailer because we use the Omni-Channel approach really fully. One channel is not dominating, but I will speak about that a bit later. They have all big shares. And over the last 10 years, basically we had huge growth, and we really used our advantages to the maximums, and of course we strive to do that in the future as well. So maybe I would start a bit, so speaking about Omni-Channel, what this means, it means we have very strong DRTV support, and also we use prime time. We have very strong call centers. We're sending out catalogs. We work with wholesale partners like Spar, Tush, Mercator, and Kaufland, and all other big partners in the region. We have our own retail network. This is already more than 400 our own stores. And of course, everywhere we are present online as well. So all these channels we're using their synergies, and basically, if you can call, attacking and communicating with the customers from all different angles. Okay, so let me go a bit into the history of Studio Moderne. The company was established by our founder and chairman Sandy Cheshko in 1992. It was at that time one product company, Cosmodisk. Cosmodisk is basically a healthcare product from healthcare category for pain in the back, pain relief in the back. And he is telling this story many times, how his friend from Serbia was persuading him to start selling this in Slovenia, and he was saying no, and then eventually he agreed that his wife will start the business, and he had his own business, and on the end his own other business died, and his wife employed him to Studio Moderne. And so the company was basically just selling Cosmodisk till 1996, when again by some more or less coincidence they went to teleshopping, and also here he was saying no, because teleshopping was perceived at that time, and to a certain extent still today is, as something negative, something that people don't really like, and so on. But very quickly they saw that it can be extremely profitable business. So they started with teleshopping, basically offering products from the States, that were on teleshopping in the States, just brought them to Slovenia and started them here. At that time, that also slowly geographical expansion started, going first to ex-Yugoslavia countries and Central Europe, and then further to basically everywhere we are today. Another very important milestone was in 2002 when the company launched Dormeo, today our strongest brand for sleeping solutions, offering mattresses, pillows, duvets, and basically everything connected with the bedroom. This changed the course of the company totally because from one product, or not our own product, we went to our own brand, and we started to control our own destiny much more because we were not relying so much on the others. And then in the next years, as you also see very nicely on this slide, we basically went into three directions of expansion. So the first one was adding more brands, Delimano, Walkmax, Livactive, El Neo, and the last one, let's say Pink Panda, going into cosmetic business. So here we are building our own brands, having strategic relationships with our suppliers, and but what is most important, not being so dependent on them, because the customers are buying, let's say, kitchenware because it's Delimano, not because it's from some supplier. So of course this is a big shift in strategy, and this is also the strategy for further to develop and build our own brands, because we still have a lot of room for expansion and market share. The other very important milestone that happened was that from DRTV company that started in '96, we went to more channels. So we started with retail, internet, print, and print meaning advertising in magazines. Then very quickly we saw that our database is getting bigger and bigger. So how to use it to the maximum, and this is how we launched database marketing, and we started to sell catalogs on the database, and really providing our clients, our partners, with all the informations about our offers, products, portfolio, and so on. And this was still sort of work in silos, while through transformation, it's still lasting today, but let's say 2014 was an important milestone. We really started with full omni-channel approach, where all the channels are working into one direction. And of course, one of the channels that was added the last was also SMS, that we are using now for a few years on different purposes. We'll talk about this a bit more later. And now we are also starting to touch Viber, WhatsApp, and similar channels, because for sure this will have an important role in the future. And the last, what was also very important, is of course geographic expansion, where basically today we're covering Baltic, Central Europe, all ex-Yugoslavia, Ukraine and Russia, Romania, Bulgaria, and as mentioned before, the last country we opened was Kazakhstan. And since we have strong brands, we also started to sell our own brands internationally to other partners in Western Europe, states, and so on. Okay, so on this slide you can just very nicely see how company went from one channel, which was the RTV at the time, to multi-channel, and here you can really see that the spread of different channels is very evenly shared, and we believe that this is one of the big uniqueness of Studio Moderne, and also powers, because today classical retailers are basically only using retail and internet, while we are adding everything else into the mix. And of course then we create with this a lot of synergies, because for instance, let's say customers get a catalog but go to retail, go online, go to retail again, or wholesale. So we really have this omni-channel approach. and consequence of growing brands, growing number of SKUs, growing number of sales channels, of course, was also big growth of revenue. Here maybe interesting data that in 2008, when basically the whole world went down with revenue streams, we had a huge growth because of this unique model on the market.
Okay. Bojan, thank you very much for this introduction, and congratulate you and your team on these impressive results. I would like to touch upon the topic of the driving forces behind all these new communication channels that you introduced. You mentioned customers. Are they always the main driving force behind opening new communication channels?
Yes, I would say that we want to reach our customers where they wanted to be reached. And on the other hand, we also, of course, as every company, need to think about profitability. So we will only open a sales channel when the sales channel is ready, let's say, to be profitable. On the other hand, we know that nothing comes overnight. We have a very strong culture in the company of testing new things. Always coming up with new ideas, and not just coming up with new ideas, but also testing them. So one of the mantra we have is test, test, test. We have, if I can say so, permission to fail. If somebody, an employee come with a new idea for a test and it doesn't work out, he will not suffer negative consequences because of this, but basically he will be encouraged to do more of this in the future. Because as long as it has common sense and sounds good, of course, let's go and try it, and let's see what will be the direction of the market. So I would say that this culture that is basically rooted into our DNA from our founder has the strongest, is one of the strongest reasons why Studio Moderne was growing into all that different directions, also from perspective of sales channels.
Yeah, really interesting. And what I'm also interested here is that you had a slide where you showed a bit how these channels evolved. You had the new channels, and even shown a bit how the importance of channels changed. So what can you tell in 2017? You have all this Omni-Channel. What can you tell us about, let's say, the importance of channels for customer engagement here? So what do you see here is going to be the future of your communication? Is it going to be more on the television still? Is it going to be more on the, for example, print? Or is it going to be mobile? So what do you see today?
I mean, customer journey is for sure something that a lot of companies are dealing with, and basically where to invest their resources, because this is the key, right? Should I invest, I don't know, 1,000 euro into online or DRTV or print or something else? And of course, also not all customers are the same. We have a lot of older customers, which are, let's say, more print orientated or more possessive towards print. Of course, we have a lot of young customers which are totally on social media and so on. So Facebook with new, as a very important new media, is also for us became very quickly very important, and we are investing a lot into Facebook or YouTube and so on. So it's hard to say in which direction this will go. But basically what is important for us is that we have, let's say, a campaign that we go all channels into one direction, and then each channel on its own needs to be profitable, needs to bring added value to itself, and of course also to other sales channels. And as I said before, we measure everything, and honestly, we still can't measure everything.
Of course.
And sometimes you just need to listen to common sense and do the right thing.
Thank you, Bojan. So what I would like to focus now more on, just to explain maybe to us and our audience, is how do you actually use the messaging in your everyday communication? So what type of campaigns, and we can focus, for example, for now on SMS. How do you actually use SMS in your everyday communication?
So as a lot of you are aware, SMS is very strong media from Reliance that basically every SMS is read. So this is not the case with email, this is not the case with billboards or radio or DRTV and so on, but basically when we are attacking customer, communicating with customer over SMS, we have really high, we know that the customer will read it. Of course, markets are very different here. On some markets, our customers are getting 10 to 15 SMSs per day, marketing SMSs, and they're basically being spammed, and they just ignore them. While on some other markets, this is really not yet so common, so let's say our SMS has much bigger impact. How do we use SMS today? I would say two main reasons are, one is strictly sales SMS, where we are communicating with our customers certain offers that are just for them, and they call back to our call centers, and we have direct response. And we also use SMSs to either support internet, so that we drive to internet, or drive to retail, where we are communicating new shop openings, certain promotions, and similar stuff.
So basically SMS is here part of this whole Omni story that you mentioned.
Yes, as mentioned before, SMS was, let's say, one of the last that was added. It's also because, again, it's not so big, and by itself, internal structure, let's say, to have SMS as a sales channel doesn't really make sense, because it's not that important. It's under print, basically because of coincidence, if I'm honest. But what is important, of course, is that we maximize its sales, its importance, and adding it to the full omni-channel mix.
Thank you very much. I would like to get a bit deeper on creating these SMS campaigns. So we know that it's really important to target the right subscribers and to target the right customers with the message. So what are the main questions we need to ask ourselves as marketers before we choose who are we going to target with, let's say, some SMS campaign?
I mean,
or it can be part of the Omni story, of course. Yeah.
In our company, I would say, like most of the companies, marketing prepares marketing calendar, where their sales is following it, and as mentioned before, SMS is a part of this. So this is one thing, and on the other thing, I don't want to repeat myself, but I will repeat myself, is test. So basically, we're testing different databases, different offers, different messaging. You know, on most markets you're limited with 160 letters, so you need to play with words. Sometimes you put top offer on the beginning, sometimes on the end, sometimes you personalize, sometimes not. So basically here the possibilities are numerous, and it's very hard to say what will work. It's very different from country to country, market to market. So again, we are testing, and what is the beauty of SMS is that you have this, let's say, the opportunity to do a small test, measure the results. If it works, you go on. If it doesn't work, you change, you play, and so it's a constant search for the perfect message.
Oh, okay, I understand. So it's more important to test and see the results than to do some, I don't know, analysis.
There's no recipes. There's no recipe that, let's say, you would just follow and you will know you have the results. We have a successful case from one country. We try to share it in other countries. Sometimes it works everywhere. Sometimes it doesn't. So again, it's very hard to put an exact recipe, but basically learning by doing it is the way for us.
Testing is the right recipe.
Yes.
So another question that we often have challenges with other retailers around the world, and you have all this omni-channel. You're talking with your customers over internet, over SMS, over television, over call center. So do you manage to have this holistic view of your customer? Do you manage to have all this information about your customer in one place? How do you deal with this challenge?
Yes and no. To be completely honest, as mentioned before, we are following one general marketing calendar, So we do communicate the main offers, the main campaigns are on all channels. Of course, then there are some smaller campaigns that can be more one-channel based, but we try to basically avoid it because this is our strength to go omni-channel. How to align the communication, so this is one way. And the other way is also every media, we believe, is perceived differently from the customer. So if something is on DRTV, and he will get an SMS or see or an email or see it as a promotion in local Spar or somewhere, we don't think that this is, let's say, bringing some sort of negative effect. As long, of course, as the message is consistent, as long as we don't on one channel promote -30 and on the other channel -50. So here this is not allowed, and it shouldn't, and it doesn't happen.
You mentioned now a really, really good point, and that's also the challenge that we are facing with other retailers around the world that they are saying us, is that oftentimes they don't have this consistency in communication. As you mentioned, 20% over SMS, 30% over email. So this communication calendar is your answer on this, how to avoid inconsistency when talking with your customers.
We are a big system, right? So for sure, time to time, inconsistencies will happen. On one hand, here you have the processes and the IT platform, everything that helps you prevent this. On the other hand, I would say the key are the people, the employees that needs to work together, that are sitting in the same office, that need to talk to each other, not be in their own silos. And this comes from our culture that is very, we support this open environment. As I said before, the reason to fail is one very important thing. The other thing is communication, collaboration among sales channels, among all parties involved inside. So I think that the culture here might be even more important than some formal process that you put in place. But if the person the manager is not motivated to follow it, he won't follow it anyway. So it needs to be top down, transparent through all the layers of communication, that we're really all breathing for the same thing.
Well, actually, that was a really good point. I was maybe expecting some mechanic answer, like, you have IT system or something else. Because what we see with other retailers is actually how you grow big, you have different teams, and those different teams are talking with the same customer, and, they're trying to fight over IT. But on the end of the day, actually, it all comes down to the organizational culture and communication between the teams.
I'm sure we all heard this Peter Drucker very famous proverb, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it sounds very stereotypical, like a stereotype, but it's true. So if two people are sitting in the same office and not talking to each other, they will not, it will be very hard to have the same communication towards our customers if they can't agree about their communication. But I believe this is, it goes for all organizations. It's not something unique just for us.
So I would like to talk now a bit more on content. So we did say that, how you target your customers that you like to test. We did say how you try to avoid all this inconsistency in your communication with your customers. When it comes to the content, what is actually important to have in mind when preparing the content that will be actually broadcasted to your potential customers and existing customers?
Regarding messages?
Yeah, let's say regarding messages.
Here,
how to engage them?
Here anyway, we are limited, of course, with number of letters. So it needs to be very clear, very simple, and the customer needs to know immediately what they need to do. Either call now or go to the shop now or go online. It needs to be, if I say a bit ruder, the most dumb person out there needs to understand immediately what he needs to do. So simplify, and be very clear in communication, and of course also consistent, as mentioned before, in all sales channels, on all with time as communication progress.
Okay, thank you for that. And the next question that we are also always intrigued, for example, in Infobip, is how to send it in the right moment. So how do you decide actually on the timing of campaign? Is it also something that you like to test and see the results? How do you actually deal with that?
I mean, when speaking about campaigns, as I said before, they are determined by the marketing calendar. Speaking about, let's say, direct response SMS, where we want to get back the calls, we need to also think about call center. Call center needs to be prepared, needs to know that the message will go out, what are the additional offers that we'll use for cross-sell or upsell and so on, and so that we don't extend over their capacity. So let's say Infobip interface has this excellent feature where we can send SMSs through a certain time. So in order to prevent that, we send, I don't know, 50,000 SMSs at the same time, and then we get a big number of phone calls and no one is there to pick up the phone. So again, coming down to synchronization, communication among different departments to really take the most out of one sending out.
Great. Now, every marketer today in the world knows the situation when you decide who you're going to send the message. We prepare the content. We synchronize everything to send it in the right moment so all departments are aligned. We click send. And then, the campaign goes out. And you mentioned a couple of times now how important it is to measure. So if you're talking about messaging campaigns, what is exactly what you measure to know whether this campaign was successful or not? What is important for you to follow?
How much we sell.
On the end of the day, how much you sell?
I mean, it's very simple, to be honest. We are a direct marketing company, so we do create direct response. And of course, for us, if I send out one SMS and sell 100 pieces and another SMS and sell 1,000 pieces, then of course it's very obvious which one was more successful. And of course, down the line, it comes to profitability. We know how much MS costs. It's different for country to country, but and we calculate our own P&Ls, break even, and see very quickly which campaigns were successful and which were not so successful. Of course, here to a certain extent, we do have, let's say, also support to other sales channels, which is harder to measure. The customer received SMS and went to retail and so on. So we try to, let's say, see if that day the sales in retail, how much it went up compared to other days, previous and after on that product. So we try to assess the successful from campaigns from different angles, but direct, I mean, sales is the most important one, and profitability, of course.
Thank you for that. Matt, I would also like to go back a bit on, you mentioned Viber as a channel. So is Viber also the result of your testing activities, or was there also some kind of a demand from the market that pushed you to introduce this channel? And where do you see the usage of this channel in future?
As mentioned before, we strive to start using sales channel when the market is ready for it. It's hard to say if market is ready for Viber or not, and this is why we're testing. We don't have yet some extremely successful stories that would work everywhere. We have some good tests, so we will for sure continue with this. I mean, I mentioned before common sense. It is common sense that if 10 years ago or 6-7 years ago, Facebook, they didn't really know. Facebook didn't know how to use, how to sell themselves, and we didn't know how to use Facebook. And today we know that they're the most important sales advertising media out there with the biggest growth. And we can only assume that Viber will be something similar. How important it will be, we don't know, but we can't just ignore it. And then once it happens, we are not prepared. We don't have the processes inside, the people with the knowledge and so on. So we are going step by step. And then when people will get used to Viber, when people will be, let's say, will know, will get a message on Viber and this will be something normal and they will react to it, then we need to be one of the first to use it. This is our idea.
So it's going to be something for promotional to support your sales channels, something that like you use SMS.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Viber has some advantages when it comes to longer text, when it comes to images and so on. So for sure, this we will want to use to our advantage.
Thank you for that. So I would like to focus now more on choosing the right provider to support all these messaging efforts that you have. So what is something that every retailer should take into consideration when choosing the provider? I mean, it's really important for you, of course. So what would you suggest?
I mean, you need to be reliable. So I think it's very important to have either the fact that it has direct routes or not, because when we invest into communication, we need to be sure that this message received the partner. So I'd say here reliability is the most important thing. On the other hand, 24-hour support, or really like on-time support. Whenever some problems occurs, that somebody is on the other side of the line that will explain, that will react, that will help us solve the issues. And on the end of the day, the price needs to be competitive, because this is the world we're living in.
Yeah, of course. And basically, for example, if the provider doesn't have a direct connection and stable, let's say, delivery rates, how is this influencing your business? It's probably influencing your marketing efforts, your sales efforts. Is that right? On the end of the day?
Of course. So let's say we send to 100 people, and if only 50 people receive this SMS, we're not reaching, I don't know, other 48. And we're losing our potential, not just with direct sales, because the number of orders will be so much lower, but also the one that don't react will not get our message or communication. So high delivery rates are definitely a must from our perspective, because we are, as mentioned, direct marketing company, and we want to, when we invest into activity, want to see a return on this investment. So if the SMS is not delivered, even if it's 20-30% cheaper than from the competition, for us this is not so relevant, as that we know once we click that send button that everybody that we want to send to reach, it will be reached.
Okay, thank you very much. One, I would like also here to touch on this future of customer engagement. So how is this going to look like? Let's say that we are in 2027, so what do you see as the key for successful customer engagement, let's say in 10 years from now? Where are we going with this customer engagement?
If I would know this, I would be very rich in 10 years. I mean, I don't know. Of course, I don't know the answer. We have our own ideas where this will go. Customer journey is something that is very important, and we're constantly monitoring and seeing what's happening on the market from this perspective, as, let's say, Viber and so on. I think here what I mentioned on the start, our culture of test is exactly this, that we are not just followers, but we're also creating new customer engagement, or new ways how to create customer engagement, customer centricity, and so on. So on one hand, omni-channel approach. On the other hand, we believe that this is the key. On the other hand, of course, to have the capacities to measure where to invest resources, because on the end of the day, we have certain resources. We want to invest them as smartly as possible, and I think this will be the key. Not just as it was maybe in the past, throw 100,000 euro into TV and then what happens. Yeah. But really to throw 100,000 euros into numerous media and basically measure where you have certain response, certain results, and then on some invest more, in some invest less. So your suggestion for the future would be test and measure. Yes, basically. We can say this. I mean, nothing really new, right? But when it comes to execution, when it comes to really doing it, then it gets a bit more complicated. Of course.
Thank you, Bojan. what I would like to do now is to go on the Q&A session. So we have a couple of questions from our audience. So how important is mobile communication in your overall company strategy?
It's important as a media. If I look from the perspective of, I don't know, generating revenue stream, it's still not that important because, of course, retail, internet, and more classical ways of sales channels are still the dominant. But it's very important for us to be part of this omni-channel flow.
Okay, I have here a question. Which was the most successful campaign with the new channel of communication? Example, did you expect such impact from this communication channel? I assume this goes to Viber, and you know, for example, you introduced some Viber campaigns, and did you get a good feedback, you know, from the market by introducing this new channel?
We got good feedback. To be completely honest, it's still very hard to measure with really strong results. So, and it's not, it's a process. On one hand, it's a process. On the other hand, usually big wins don't come easy. So it's, again, not to repeat myself, test. And because also SMS, we started very slowly, we started very modestly, you know, we didn't know really how to use it, when, and so on. And then with time, we're growing and so on. And today, I must say, it's very successful media from all perspectives. So, but yeah, I think there is not, I can't put out one easy win that we just said, wow, let's do this.
And especially because you're working on more than 20 markets, so on one market it will work, on some it might not.
Exactly. And it's also very complex to go on 20 markets and do the same thing, because you need to convince 20 people or even more, and it takes time.
Yeah, of course. So another question that we have here is, how important is price when thinking about new channel? So you did mention that when choosing a provider, price is one of the important factors. So how would you maybe elaborate more on this question?
As I said before, so on one hand you had reliability, so you need to trust the partner that he will offer you the service that he's promising. If there is, I mean, this I would say is the basic foundation of a possible relationship. And once you have ideally more partners that you know they can deliver what they're promising, then they need to compete with the price. And by this you also put yourself in the best position to have fair, and I would say fair price on the market. We don't want to have 50% off, because we do believe that we need to have win-win situation from all sides. But of course, somebody should not have with us above market price, because then we are overpaying for a certain service, and then we are the one to blame if we allow that to happen.
Thank you, Ben. And we also have here the question, how do you fight spam? So that probably goes on the part when we talked about not sending inconsistent messages or overload the customer with information. So I assume the answer to this question goes back to communication calendar that you mentioned.
This on one hand, and of course, we believe that it's not about, let's say, the frequency, how many SMS you send per week or month or whatever, but it's more about being relevant for the customer. So you can send, you can attack customer with more media or one media more often, as long as you have something to say. So in that sense, I mean, if I'm I don't know, let's say, to go out of Studio Moderne, if I like sports and certain company sends me big promotion on their sports equipment, I'm interested. Even if I won't buy it, I'm interested. I'm totally okay by receiving this message. And so they can, as long as they have a relevant message for me, they can send me even more, and I will not, maybe I will not react every time because I don't have the need in that time, but I will not get upset by it. And I will not react negatively in the future. So I think here it's really about relevance, and so that we don't spam in sense of repeating ourselves, or just, you know, notifying customer about something that it's basically to notify him for no particular reason or not a strong reason, but to be, I think relevance here is the key word.
Thank you very much, Bojan. I think that was all the questions that we had. In case we skipped some questions, we will answer it after the webinar. And just to close this one, I would like to thank you again for being part of this webinar. It was really an interesting to hear all the stories that you share with us. And good luck with your future efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and good luck to all of you out there, and hopefully you found something useful for yourself as well.
And thank you. Yeah, and thank you all for being part of the webinar today. Okay. Goodbye.